Hey everyone, and welcome to Explainer. Today, we are transforming the core, life-changing lessons of David J. Schwartz's absolute classic, The Magic of Thinking Big, into a super vibrant, cartoon-style journey. By the time we wrap up these concepts, you're going to have a totally fresh perspective on how your mindset literally dictates your reality.
We've got a colorful cartoon treasure map guiding us today through 5 huge lessons. The danger of small dreams, valuing genuine connections, eradicating negativity, catching contagious ambition, and finally, thinking creatively. Let's hit that first stop. Lesson number 1, the danger of small dreams. This is where we confront that sneaky, overarching problem of self-doubt. So the source tells this fascinating story about university grads. Picture this, graduation is right around the corner, and everyone is panicking, right? They're rushing out, buying these stiff suits to climb a corporate ladder that, let's be honest, often leads straight to nowhere. Cut to a few years later, and so many of those same grads are stressed out, stuck in jobs they absolutely hate. But contrast that with the billionaire dreamer. This is the person who completely bypassed that whole panic phase. Why? Because their dream was already so massive. They knew they wouldn't end up stranded. They basically realized a standard corporate ladder isn't going to make you a billionaire, so they ditched the broken ladder altogether and started looking straight at the stars. It really boils down to this incredibly simple yet completely profound idea. You can't hit a target you can't see. Seriously, imagine trying to shoot an arrow while wearing a blindfold. Sounds crazy, right? But that's exactly what people do when they hold on to small dreams and self-doubt. If your dream is tiny or practically invisible to you, well, your life is going to be pretty small too. You've got to rip that blindfold off and aim for a massive target.
All right, lesson 2, value genuine human connections. Having a giant target is a great first step, but let's see how this actually affects the people around us.
We all know someone who acts, well, kind of like a leech in a business suit. The source actually calls this a parasitic relationship. You know the type, the person who only magically remembers you exist when they need a huge favor. Listen, if you're the kind of person who only texts friends or family when you need something done, don't be surprised when they eventually just block your number. Nobody, and I mean nobody, likes being in a parasitic relationship or feeling like they're being taken for granted. And that brings us to this brilliant little takeaway. The author actually throws in a great bit of humor here, saying something like, be genuinely interested in people because one day you might need them to put you out of a prison, and then he quickly corrects himself, problem. It's a hilarious slip of the tongue, but wow, does it hit the nail on the head. You need to genuinely value the people in your life today, way before you actually need them to, bail you out of trouble.
Moving right along to Lesson 3, eradicate negativity, see opportunities. Time to face down those dark clouds of constant pessimism.
Okay, get this. The source shares a story about a super negative guy who is just complaining nonstop at a bank. He's convinced everything is awful, his country is terrible, and everywhere else governments just hand out free money. To prove his point, he talks about going to get a startup loan, and he's just outraged by the monthly repayment terms. But, and here's the kicker, when someone asks him a simple question, hey, how much are you actually saving every month from your own salary? He gets all sheepish and admits nothing. His own savings were quite literally at zero.
Then the person talking to this negative guy drops a brilliant follow-up question. He asks, who do you think helped finance Bill Gates, or Richard Branson, Mark Zuckerberg, Peter Thiel? And the negative guy? Absolutely clueless. He had no idea. And this perfectly illustrates our third lesson. The whole problem with being negative is that your brain gets hardwired to only see the bad stuff. To a negative mind, the whole world is dark and working against you. But to an optimistic mind, those exact same obstacles are literally just opportunities in disguise. Opportunities to create solutions and build real wealth. You've got to completely eradicate that negative thinking.
Lesson 4. Make ambition contagious. Because as the old saying goes, you can't soar with eagles if you're hanging out with chickens.
You've probably heard people say that rich people only hang out with rich people, right? Well, the source makes a really interesting point. Being rich is actually more about your habits than just making money. Ambition is incredibly contagious, but hey, so is poverty. Just look at the epic story of Bill Gates and Warren Buffett. At the time the source material was put together, they'd been best friends for 27 years. But do you know how it started? Gates' mom invited him to dinner to meet Buffett, and Gates literally said no. He was so hyper-focused on Microsoft, he didn't even believe in taking vacations. He thought it would be a total waste of time because he figured Buffett was just some guy who bought and sold pieces of paper. He didn't think they'd have a single thing in common. But he eventually caved, went to the dinner, and boom, the connection was instant. They discovered this shared visionary mindset that sparked a massive decades-long friendship. The takeaway? You absolutely have to surround yourself with people who share your ambition. And that brings us to our fifth and final lesson. Think creatively, don't memorize. We really need to rethink what our brains are actually meant to do in today's world.
The source goes really hard on our modern school systems here, pointing out that there is way too much emphasis on just memorizing random facts. Teachers will often think a kid is an absolute genius just because they can recite a bunch of figures, but seriously, why on earth does a 5-year-old need to memorize the names of every governor in the country? Most of them will be out of office before the kid is even 10. And even if they weren't, why clutter up your mind with stuff you can just pull up on Google in 2 seconds? We need to stop acting like human calculators or filing cabinets. Just let Google handle the data storage. The big lesson here is that you should be using your brain for the one thing neither Google nor a calculator can ever do: pure, unadulterated, creative thinking.
So, as we wrap up this explainer, I want you to imagine you're holding a totally blank blueprint for your own future. We've talked about the danger of small dreams, valuing real connections, wiping out negativity, catching contagious ambition, and using that brain of yours to actually create instead of just store facts. But you know, the source material holds even more secrets. So what lessons do you think we might have missed in this colorful cartoon summary? What points would you add from your own life experiences? I'm going to leave you with this one final provocative thought. Now that you understand the real magic of thinking big, what limitations are you going to drop today? And what incredible, massive reality are you going to build on your very own blank blueprint? Thanks so much for joining me on this journey, and hey, keep thinking big.